Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello students, welcome to my video. In this video, we are going to learn about narrative text. Are you familiar with narrative text? Or have you ever learned about it before? Well, let's start. Before we start learning, let me tell you about the basic competence. Narrative text is a material given for grade 10 in the second semester with two basic competence of cognitive and psychomotoric. They are KD 3.8 membedakan fungsi sosial, struktur teks, dan unsur kebahasaan beberapa teks naratif lisan dan tulis dengan memberi dan meminta informasi terkait legenda rakyat sederhana sesuai dengan konteks penggunaannya. KD 4.8 menangkap makna secara kontekstual terkait fungsi sosial, struktur teks, dan unsur kebahasaan teks naratif lisan dan tulis sederhana terkait legenda rakyat. And the learning goals are as follow. Have you ever watched the pictures? What do you know about those pictures? Well, it tells us about story of fantasy. In the first picture, it tells us about the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. How about the second picture? Yes, good. It tells us about the story of Beauty and the Beast. Well, the third picture is also the fantasy story. It's about Cinderella. This picture shows us about love, magic, prince, princess, castles, and many fantasy or fiction things. We call them fairy tales. Well, how about these pictures? Can you explain that? Well, the first pictures tells us about the story of Malin Kundang. Have you familiar with Malin Kundang story? And the second pictures tells us about Sangkuriang or the legend of Tangkuban Perahu. And the last picture shows us about the story of Bawang Putih and Bawang Merah. The stories has become familiar in our country. We called them by folk tales. Okay, so far, can you explain what narrative text is? Anyone knows? Okay, narrative text is a text of story that contains complication or problematic events, and it tries to find resolutions to solve the problem. Here, we are going to discuss about the kinds of narrative texts. Can you mention what are they? The first is legend. Legends are stories about events that happened in the distant past. Often it is not clear if the characters really exist or if the events really took place. The second is a fairy tale. Fairy tale usually tells us about the story of characters such as peasants, witches, and royalty, and be set in places such as castle, village, and forest or wood. It usually features good characters against the evil ones. The third, we have folktale. Folktale is a story passed on verbally and not recorded in writing. Therefore, it is often partly modified by consecutive retellings before being written down or recorded. Folktales include legends, fables, and fairy tales. Many folk tales involve mythical beings and magical transformation. Moreover, we also have fable. What is fable? Fable is a story that has a moral or teach a lesson. Fables use humanized animals, objects, or part of nature as main characters and are therefore considered to be a subgenre of fantasy. Well, let's talk about the social function. Narrative text has function to entertain and amuse the readers or listener with the amusing story. And how about the generic structure? In narrative text, we have orientation, complication, resolution, and the part that become optional, we call it by reorientation. In orientation, we can find in the first paragraph, where the writer introduced the characters and setting time or place of the story. In complication, the writer tells the problem happened in the story. The writer starts to inform the situation, introduce the problem, then lead the problem into crisis or climax. In resolution part, the problem happened in the story is solved and the story is ended happily or sadly. Well, the language features used in narrative text are first, past tense, second, adverb, third, time conjunction, fourth, adjectives, and the last, direct speech. Simple past used to show an action which happened at a specific time in the past. For example, in the sentence, I saw the movie yesterday and he never studied at night. It is used to show some habits in the past. Let's go to the past continuous. It is used to speak of some continuing action in the past. She was hopping at the mall last night. Adverbs. Adverbs are words that show us how something happened. For example, the man drove his car carefully. She ate her breakfast quickly. A husband and a wife lived happily in a village. The adverb carefully, quickly, and happily become the adverbs of manner that explain us how the subject do the activity. Direct speech. It is the reporting of speech by repeating the actual words of a speaker, such as, I'm going, she said. What a huge speech. Wait, don't cut me. Malin Kundang said to his mother, enough, old woman, I have never had a mother like you. A dirty and ugly peasant. Mother, please forgive me, she cried and asked her mother to forgive her. In narrative text, it also uses adjectives. Adjectives are words that give us first objective information about something. It tells about age, size, color, origin, materials, and shape. For example, Tom lives in a new house. It shows us the word new as age. And the second one, Tom lives in a big house. In this sentence, use an adjective big, for describing size. Second, adjectives gives us about opinion about something. For example, the house is luxurious. And the last, adjectives is used after these verbs: get, feel, smell, taste, sound, seem, look, and growl. For example, do you feel tired? And the cake smells good. The part that also becomes the important in learning narrative text is moral value. Moral value is guiding principle of life and to develop individual behavior. Moral value plays an important role as it teaches life lessons in the most interesting way. Such stories help in teaching us a valuable lesson about how to be a good and considerate person too. Moral stories can teach the value of compassion, respect, integrity, and responsibility in a very easy way. Here are some expressions used in telling a story. First, if you want to start in telling a story, you may use "Once upon a time there lived," or "a long, long ago," and "a long time ago." Second, how about the expression to tell an event? You can use "then," "the next morning," "so then," and "after that." The expression to end a story. You can use "in the end," "finally," "so in the end," and "all in all." And how about the expression used to respond or show attention to a story? You can use "Oh really? It's amazing. Oh, poor creature. And what a pitiful girl she is." Now let us read the story of Batu Badaun. It's a story from Maluku, Indonesia. A long time ago, on Tanimbar Island, Maluku, there lived a widow and her 2 children were mean and spoiled. They never knew hard work and neither did they help their mother with the household chores. One day, the 2 lazy young people woke up late when the sun was already high. They went to the kitchen to look for food, but nothing was served. The food was still being cooked, but their mother was not around. They smashed the cooking pots in rage. They went to look for their mother and found her washing their clothes at the river. They complained to and shouted at her. It made the widow cry. She cried piteously and begged for mercy. The 2 weak children didn't pay attention to her cries. They hit her again and again. The poor woman kept crying and struggling to free herself, but it was in vain. Suddenly, she stopped crying and her body went limp. She said to her children, "From now on, you are no longer my children. Do whatever you want. I'm not coming back home." Then the widow went to Big Rock by the river and said, "Please open up, Big Rock. Let me come inside you and become a white, sweat-smelling flower." Finally, the big rock opened up. She went inside and the rock closed over her. After a few days, a small plant started growing under the big rock. White, sweet-smelling flowers bloomed from it. It had a lot of leaves as well. The villagers called the big rock Batu Badaun. And what happened to the widow's children? The cruel children were forced to live by the angry villagers. They were never heard of again. In this story, the first paragraph, called Orientation, which tells us about the characters, they are a widow and her two children. It also explained about the time of place used in the story, that is Tanimbar Island, Maluku. In the second paragraph, it explained us about the complication with the problem rice. And the third paragraph become the resolution part. And reorientation can be found in the last paragraph. After reading and understanding the story of Batu Badaun, can you find the moral value of that story? Yes, it tells us to be dutiful child. It teaches us to don't be rude. And it asks us to give love as sincere as our parents love. Now, let's do the activity. First, read the following text of some legends from Indonesia. Second, analyze the information about the characters, the setting, the language features, the ending, and the moral value of the stories. And the last, as the project for the next meeting, find the other stories from any province or country. Perform your skill of speaking by telling the story you have chosen. The texts are The Crying Stone, The Legend of Malin Kundang, The Story of Sugar Palm Tree, and Sangkuriang and Dayang Sumbi. Okay student, that's all for our learning today. Thank you for your nice attention. Hope this video will be useful for you. I'll see you next time and thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.